Welcome everyone into the next session, wherein Dr. Jaswinder Kaur Aulak, Assistant Professor, Department of English, Khalsa College, Amritsar, Punjab, India, would address everyone. Dr. Jaswinder Kaur Aulak, academic qualification, MA English from SCD Government College, Ludhiana, MPhil and PhD with focus of systematic functional linguistics by Mac Halliday from GNDU Amritsar, Punjab. She's working as assistant professor of English in Khalsa College, Amritsar, Punjab. She has about 10 years of teaching experience in various colleges. She has got more than 15 papers in different journals, 6 book chapters, and 2 edited books. She actively participates in conferences, workshops, and seminars. She is an in charge of English Literary Society, member of NAC committee, member of Board of Studies, Khalsa College, Amritsar. Her area of interest is language and literature. She has contributed recently in the revised edition of historic book of her historic college entitled A History of the Khalsa College, Amritsar, which was earlier published in 1945 by Dr. Ganda Singh, a well-known historian.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for introducing.
Now I would like Dr. Jaswinder Kaur Aulak to take over the session. We are looking forward to this session. It's over to you. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for inviting. First of all, it's really good for listening such good speakers and all. People are participating very well. Thank you so much for it.
Thank you, ma'am.
Shall we move on to the session?
Sure, ma'am.
Immediately?
Yeah, you can take over, ma'am.
Okay. First of all, I would like to call Mr. Raman Goswami to present
Yes,
his
ma'am.
paper. Yeah.
Myself, Raman Goswami, and my title of my paper is Patience and Women are synonymous from the viewpoint of society in Vijay Tendulkar's banner in Silence the Court is in session. In introduction, I want to say, ma'am, India is considered as a country of various cultures. It is written in Manusmriti, Nari Tome Narayani. Again, the financial department in this country is attributed to Lakshmi, Goddess Lakshmi. The Ministry of Education is attributed to Saraswati, and the Defense Ministry is attributed to Durga and Kali. But the most interesting matter is that in this cultural country, women are now marginalized, oppressed, and deprived of various things. There are a great list of no's in their life. My presentation is related with such type of oppression of women in this patriarchal society. The dramatist said in the course of the drama that na Sri Swatantra Marathi, that is, women are not fit for independence. In my abstract, I want to mean, or I want to say, Tendulkar's dramas are neither ethical nor depraved in tone, but may rather be seen unprincipled. In a limited sense, he may be seen as a silent social activist who covertly wishes to bring about a change in the people's mode of thinking, feeling, and behaving, according to Vadikar. As an idealist, he is willing to make people alert towards life with all their vices and boundaries. His plays are like an echo that reflects the individual's interior and external world. While dealing with the social realities, he parodies two major tendencies of Indian civilization: masculine dominance and feminine weakness. Tendulkar is a problem dramatist. The essence of his drama is the conflict between realism and delusion, life and art. In short, they are the conflict between personality and the humanity, where state of affairs and surroundings play great roles. Silence, the court is in session, is entitled in Marathi as Shantata, Court Chalu Ahe. The present drama won the Kamala Devi Chattopadhyay Award for the Best Indian Play in 1970. Right from the identity of the play, the drama has the authority to develop into manifold complex levels of lively theatre. As the play progresses, the ridicule and grave undertones of the title becomes precise. The key words of my paper are patriarchal, communal, bigotry, identity, gender, society, and domination. The women have no space of their own, and they exist under steady weight of patriarchal constraints. The individuality of a woman, her requirement for a communal significance, economic adequacy, and moral recognition comprise the essential issue in Silence the Court is in session. The central character, Leela Benare, begs a judgment at the drama court for her admiration restored. The friendless she is, deserted by a missing criminal, Professor Damle, by whom she is pregnant. Being an unattached mother, her quandary amidst the unfriendly middle class and over-romantic male bigotry becomes more finely tuned. She begs a decision and wishes to be a free person, determined to preserve her identity and distinctiveness at elevated height. Benare is challenging to gender prejudice and to uncover the trick of social days in Indian middle class. Stunning images, carefully chosen words and phrases, and many references to iconoclasture and many figurative subsidiary parallels give the play a dense material of the dramatic span. For example, while incoming, the faculty handle of the door draws blood from Banare's hand, which metaphorically hints the predictable suffering. Further, the room locked outside also hints the maze, the green clothed parrot, half grave, half silly talk, and many such references can be given as Benare's sugary soft heart and her personal thoughts, feelings, passions, and motives. The mock court is a sport where only but a thin line divides the theatrically and geniusness. The more the games are played, artifices are lodged, and the play becomes harder and sharp. My next topic is the operation and game. If the topic is guided by its custom value system, the answer is exclusionary. Thus, the troubles of identity, middle class sentimentalism, manly domination, or patriarchal culture in the matter of conversation reveal an acute surveillance of Tendulkar, which are never useless, fraud, meticulous, or double dealing. In the present day, Vijay Tendulkar chooses a word of judicial record as the title of his play to make influential comment on a society with serious patriarchal bias that makes justice not possible and that converts the impressive judicial system into an instrument of domination of women and the defenseless. Supremely, justice can be provided only if the judge and the judicial scheme are impartially detached. In the present play, we find how Benare becomes the injured party of sadism of his masculine counterpart. The audience is made to witness a mere performance of what is practice of sorts of mock trial to be staged later in the day. But what begins as a risk-free game begins to take for granted as a grim aspect before long. On Sukhatme's suggestion, they settle on to make Benare the accused. It is noteworthy that Benare is chosen the role of accused in her non-appearance. As soon as Benare enters the room singing and wiping her face on the towel, she is caught ignorantly by Ponce. Miss Leela Benare, you have been arrested on suspicion of a crime of an extremely grave nature and brought as a prisoner before the bar of this court, Kashi Court. Assuming the role of the judge, punishes Benare of the misdeed of infanticide. The way Benare is made the accused devoid of her permission shows the performance of the patriarchal organization. It is as if a woman is continuously on the dock under the thoughtful stare of a patriarchal society. The accusation against Benare are based partly on guesses, partly on tittle-tattle. It is suspected that she is a coquette and that she has an unlawful love affair with Professor Damle, whose son she is bearing. Even someone who is blameless and ignorant reads out a passage from a book and the details seem to fit Banare's case. What begins as a sport evolves into a chase. My next point is, patience becomes a weapon. All present, with the exemption of summons, bring out their individual equations like fangs. They defend their wickedness in the name of social justice, ideologies, and customs. The verdict meted out to her is savage. The baby in her womb must be destroyed, and she must be dismissed from her occupation, all in the name of purifying the humanity and glorifying the high principles of maternity. There is no talk about the scholar who deserted her, the absent Damle. When Banare wants to complain, she is ordered to be quiet because the court is in session. Again, when she keeps silent, she is ordered to crack the silence in the name of the law and threatened with disdain of court. When she wants to leave Ponce, blocks her approach, and Mrs. Kasikor, catching grasp of her, drags her to the dog. Everyone relishes her persecution. She is driven to misery and attempts suicide. In such a severe situation, every word of the title, silence the court is in session, assumes representative significance. The word silence symbolizes the patriarchal scheme to silence the voice of female in the name of social justice and principle. The word court symbolizes a brutal system approved by the state. The court is perhaps also the symbol of the mindset to judge that pretends to be worried of the greatest advantage of mankind, yet terribly lacks in caring value and has a typical patriarchal state of mind. The phrase in session represents the common social arrangement which is biased against women. My next point is middle class outlook towards women. This drama essentially deals with the people who basically belong to the middle class of the humanity. Miss Lile Benare is an instructor and she is very proud of her job. She is very reckless in nature, but she could not get triumph in this very attempt, and next tried her love affair against Professor Damle. The man, full of sly nature, only enjoyed her bodily beauty and made her infamily wed too, then discarded her to get in his life. The plot of the play has got total balance. Bijoy Tendulkar, who is known for his concern for average social problems of Indian society, through this play tried to explore certain issues of modern society like disenchantment in search for independence by a woman, the concept of new woman versus conventional woman, and middle class approach and its meanness, and number 4, the deterioration of dramatic activity. And in the conclusion, I want to say, there is one Chinese proverb, and it says, if you want a plant, you must sow seed. If you want to plant civilization, you must plant a woman. Lila Benare is a school teacher who is slightly rebellious and assertive as the heroine of Shakespeare's romantic comedy. As some critics have already observed, she is sexually alive and she needs to fulfill her desire. And for that, she is not feeling guilty for her instinct. She is conscientious in her work and commands the love and respect of all her pupils. As a teacher, Benare is proud of herself. She says in school, when the first bell rings, with my listen, the play starts in an empty hall. And Benare's entry on the stage suggests significance. Her finger gets caught in the board, and someone informs her that in this hall, the opening door is problematic. As while opening the door, if the board stays out just a little bit, the door gets shut and one is locked up inside the hall. And symbolically, Benare is also locked up in this hall, where her personal life will be tried. And at last, the castigation of Miss Benare under the garb of mock trial shows the society's ruthlessness in concerning an individual and sacrificing him or her on the altar of convention and morals. But the irony is that the hangmen, here the critics of Miss Benare, are themselves equally guilty, but go scot-free under the protection of society, which they pretend to represent. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. You have presented very well, starting from the Manuskriti to relating it to the present world. And we have seen that situation of women has not changed. And I totally agree with you. Being teachers also and being females also, we can say that we are being brought up like that. Women are told since their childhood to be patient, to be listening to everyone and everything. Thank you so much for presenting this. And if anyone has any question, you can please ask.
As such, there is no question in the chat box, ma'am.
Yeah, no questions in chat box also. So I thought if anybody wants to ask. Oh, thank you so much. I would like to call upon, this is a joint paper. Who would like to present? This is by myself,
Myself,
Lemon.
Akila.
This picture is the best.
Okay.
I'm
Okay, Akila ma'am, you will be presenting?
Yes, ma'am. I'll be presenting, ma'am. Good morning, ma'am.
Okay, good morning. Show ma'am, keep it up.
Shall I, ma'am?
Yes.
That, so myself is Akila. I'm from Ayanada Janaki College from Sivakasi. So I'll be presenting on the topic, the theme of marginalization in J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter series. So at first I have to tell that I didn't have any opinion about this applying this particular theme of marginalization in Harry Potter series on which I'm doing my PhD. And I have analyzed this particular Harry Potter series in various perspectives, like that of applying Aristotle's Nicomachean ethics, and I have studied the female characters. I have correlated it to the folk tales that are available in the book, and related to that, I was doing so many research. So, but then when I came across this conference and social cultural background, I thought that I can probe into such themes in my Harry Potter series. And literally, I was really surprised that I was able to find the traces of marginalization in the renowned book that was written by J.K. Rowling, the Harry Potter series. And I thought that I have to probe into it. And before that, I thought that I have categorized the social justices that I was able to trace in Harry Potter series under the particular theme as marginalization, the heading as marginalization, because I felt that it is marginalization, it symbolizes the treatment of a people, a group or a concept as they are insignificant, or as they are useless to the society. So as I thought that these social injustices can be categorized under the theme of marginalization, because these people are found to be unimportant, and also they are given powerless position in the society. So though they protest, they are unable to get or regain their particular state, because still now, though they are protesting, though they are fighting to get back their rights, they are continuously being marginalized, cornered. So I thought that I have to place them under marginalized group. So people are not allowing them to place them in the proper position. So they are unable to get the rights and the thing that is available for everyone in the society. So the excluded group, they are excluded based upon their race, gender inequality, sexual orientation, age, physical ability, language, and also even immigration status. So this is found not only in our society, but also I was able to trace it in so many societies. It is very much common. So when I thought of applying this particular theme in Harry Potter series, I thought that why should that particular writer, J.K. Rowling, a very famous woman writer, why should she write this? Why should she mention about these social injustices here and there indirectly in her series, especially it is which is meant for children and young adults. So I was thinking about all such things. So at that time, I was able to remember her biography. When she was about to publish her first series, she has written it well. She has penned it down well, but then she was unable to get any publishers. So she was knocking at the doors of so many publishers to publish her book. But she was neglected by so many people. She was not given proper response. She was unable to do that. Though she was a famous writer now who is economically sound, at first she was not so in that condition. She lost her life. She did not have a good family life, and all such thing throttled her. So finally, she was able to find Bloomsbury Publication, who just welcomed her, but then with only one condition, saying that she has to hide her identity, being a woman. So that was the thing she was able to face. See, all of us, all the human beings, they long for recognition, they long for appreciation. That is what we are longing for. Everyone, even in the family relationship, even in the career, even elsewhere. So we want none other than appreciation or recognition. This is what human beings they long for. So but then see, she has written all the things, but then she has to change her name. into a pen name as J.K. Rowling. Her real name is Joan Rowling because according to those people who belong to a developed country like that of Britain, they thought that as these books were written for young adults, the boys who would approach this book, they will not approach it if it has been written by a woman. So according to the mentality of those people, those boys or men, according to them, they were of the opinion that if it has been written by men, it would be interesting. If it has been written by a woman, it will not be so. So this was the a common base mental state of men even in that country. So she was made to change her name. She adopted her grandmother's name into her middle name, and she changed it as J.K. Rowling. Even now, though she gets all the recognition, she was not able to reveal her real name. No one calls us as Joan Rowling. Everyone was able to identify her as only J.K. Rowling. So this would have made her, I thought that this would have made her uh, indirectly post some ideas regarding social justice, injustices in the society, even in her children's book. And when I was thinking about this, I was also able to understand the another woman, famous woman writer from India, from Kerala, Kamala Das. Though she was a controversial writer, she should be acknowledged for her knowledge. Very good woman writer, Kamala Das. So when I was reading her autobiography, my story, during her childhood, she was brutally abused for her color. For she was a brown skinned woman, though she was very beautiful, she was brown skinned. She was abused because she belonged to an Anglo-Indian school where majority of the students were foreign students. So she was not given proper responsibility. Even the poem that was written by her was given to a Scottish girl to read in front of a governor. She was not given proper recognition. Her identity was erased out. So she was not given appreciation. So this is what happens even in the country, in abroad, or in our society. So I haven't thought that before reading the my autobiography of Kamala Das, I haven't thought that even racism is found in our country. But then she has mentioned that even racism, she was able to experience in her country, and inequality, gender inequality was experienced by the famous women writer J.K. Rowling in the popular country, in the powerful country like that of Britain. So I thought that I have to probe into this marginalization, and I justified that J.K. Rowling has intentionally mentioned that she has to instruct her children, instruct her young readers that they have to abort these social injustices after reading these. So regarding these marginalization, I thought that marginalization or showing hatred or dislike towards the other is none other than unconscious xenophobia. So I thought that xenophobia is none other than the extreme fear over the other race. So because of that unconscious fear, the superior ones who feel themselves were superior, they were unable to accept the other ones. So because they did not want to lose their position, the first position. So if they are able to accept, if they accept the another one near to them, they may overtake them. This was their fear. So because of that superiority nature, because of that fear of losing that superior nature, with that xenophobia, they do all such social injustices. Because of this particular xenophobia, there comes out of that is none other than marginalization. And due to this fear, many people, they detach themselves from the other races, other people. So this is what happens everywhere, not only in our society but also in all the societies. So when I was thinking about this xenophobia, I was able to remember the prose piece that I have taught in my class. So the famous prose piece that was written by the anti-colonial Afro-American writer James Baldwin, A Stranger in a Village. Very interesting prose piece. He would have mentioned about his black state, being a Negro, how he was cornered, how much he is knowledgeable. He would have portrayed it through his beautiful language. So I was able to recollect it. So he would have mentioned the difference between black people and the white people, how they are cornered, how they are, how the white people have snatched away their equality. He would have mentioned all such things in so many pages. So in that also, he would have mentioned that the white people, they wanted to lead themselves, lead their lives as masters. So because of that fear of losing their identity as masters, they were unable to accept the another race who coexisted along with them. So black people also existed along with them. So they were also knowledgeable, they were also equally compatible like that of these people, but then they were unable to accept them. So only such difference was their color. Apart from that, they were unable to find any differences. Both are human beings, but then the white people, they were unable to accept the black ones because they did not want to lose their position as masters. So because of that, he mentions. So I was able to correlate all such things when I was analyzing this particular theme of marginalization in Harry Potter series. So in Harry Potter series also, I was able to find so many evidences for the combination of social injustices such as casteism, untouchability, slavery, and racism. Even I was able to, and J.K. Rowling, she hasn't mentioned about these things that she was going to mention about social injustices anywhere else in any of her 7 books. But then it was there, and if we correlate it to the society in which we live, in the societies we have heard about, it would be appropriate for it to assert them as the superior beings, and the fear to lose the upper hand. The characters also make themselves resort to the unjust ways of marginalization because of that particular concept of xenophobia. So regarding the characters of Harry Potter series, so Harry Potter series is none other than the imaginary world, the fictional world that was created by J.K. Rowling. So a beautiful world where it cannot be true at all. But then even in that magical world, which is meant for children and young adults, so it was portrayed in the way of magical realism. She has mentioned about so many characters who resort to these social injustices. And one such people who are marginalized are none other than squibs. Squibs who are mentioned in these books. And they are the people who are born to wizard and witches, but they will not inherit the property of doing magic. So they are found to be basically when they are born itself, they do not have this particular ability to perform magic. So they are found to be deformed beings. So it is not their mistake. It had the God has to be blamed for that, or the parents have to be blamed for that. But then they are found to be unfit to live in the society. So I was able to think about so many things, and also I came across Dr. Ambedkar's quote regarding untouchability, saying that unfortunately it still remains in the domain of the unexplained, not to say of the ununderstood. So it reminds people are able to understand that it is not the proper way of treating people. They are equal, but then they are unable to accept it. So people are able to, so they are able to reason out everything, but then we are not in the position to let down from that particular thing from which we are standing, and we are accepting. We are not able to accept the other beings. So this is what he has mentioned, and I was also able to correlate it to the characters like that of Squibs in Harry Potter series. So their lives can also be, I thought that their lives can also be compared to the pathetic lives of transgenders. So they too, I was able to consider them to that of their lives to that of Squib's life. So unanswerable question with their deformity. But then many people are able to accept them, but then many people they are unable to. So they are abhorred for their hated for their deformity. So though these people they are able to accept it, they are unable to lead a proper life, a normal life like that of other beings. So they adhere to unjust norms of the world, and also they live their silent lives in their world. So it is the responsibility of the people who belong to the society, they have to give voice for them. But then still they live the silenced life in the society. And also, I was able to trace three prominent squibs in Harry Potter series, and one is Mrs. Fig, and another one is the antagonist, Voldemort's mother, Merope, and Dumbledore's sister Ariana, and all three people, they are squibs. Whereas the only one character who was able to lead an independent life was none other than Mrs. Fig. She was able to lead an independent life. She was able to prove herself that she was useful to the society because of the people who surrounded her. So they were able to give her the proper acknowledgement. She was able to give her, she was provided a job. She was responsible. She led her life peacefully. Whereas the other two, Merope and Ariana, they all the responsibility. They were not given any responsibility. They were locked up in their houses. Even their parents, they felt that they are the shameful creatures. So they were unable to even let out to other people that they have begot a squib. So this Ariana and Merope, they were locked up in the houses. Even their parents, they were unable to digest it. So these were the lives. So finally, without any acknowledgement, without any meaning to life, they have lost their lives. So the marginalization, this particular cornerizing people, it snatches the lives of the people. It do not give any proper meaning to the people. It erases the identity of the people. So I was able to trace all such things. So even they belong to economically sound background, they were unable to lead their lives. So another thing I was able to find, like that of squibs, is none other than the wizards. Among the wizards, there are none other than pure blood and half bloods. So pure bloods are the people whose parents are purely wizards, and half bloods are the people whose parents would be magic and the common people, non-magic people. So I was able to trace it like that of casteism, the upper hand people, the pure people, and the lower cadre people. So yesterday when ma'am was mentioning about Varna system, I was able to correlate it to them also. The upper ones and the last ones, fourth cadre people. This is what happened to even in Wizard world also, even in a fictional world, J.K. Rowling, she was able to mention this distinction, pure blood, half blood. So the half-blood people, they are completely different to that of squibs. And these half-blood people, they can perform magic, they can do all such things, they are powerful like that of pure-blooded people, but then they cannot prove themselves. They are looked down by other people. It is similar to that of casteism that is prevalent in our society. I felt so. And even among the creatures like that of giants, there are also distinction between giants and half giants. So this distinction is similar to the practice of caste in various places. And casteism is not only found in India, but also in various forms in various countries. This particular casteism, in different names, it is found in various countries. So this is also another thing, giving importance to the distinction, the topmost one, the second one. So this distinction I was able to find among people, even in the magical world, which is similar to the one that is found in the present society. And regarding this half-blood, two important half-bloods are mentioned in the series. One is Quirrell and another one is Snape. And this Professor Quirrell was a half-blood who worked in the Hogwarts, and he appeared in the book One Alone, because in that book itself he loses his life. And he wanted power and utmost recognition. Right from his childhood, he was hated for being a half-blood. So he thought that he has to join hands with an evil wizard so that he can get recognition, he can get power, he can suppress or control the people who just hated them, who just bullied him. So this was a thought that just went into his head. So this is a wrong concept. Though it is a wrong concept, I just reminded of the proverb that never judge a man until you have walked in his shoes. So only we can feel the pain of other people only when we have experienced that particular pain. So though we say that we can show sympathy, empathy upon other people, we cannot understand their pain, their sufferings only when we have suffered or when we have understood or experienced that particular pain. So this is what these people. So because of this, these marginalized people, these marginalized characters, they resort to evil doings. Though it is not justifiable, because of their situation, they resort to all such things. And the same thing happened to the character Snape also. At first, right from his childhood in the school also, he was bullied by other people, and he thought that he has to get power. He has to, and he was a very knowledgeable kid. So he
Just
thought
a
that he
minute,
has,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Ma'am Akila, just a minute. Ma'am, actually, you are going in a very full pace, but we are still left with two more people. Two more paper are to be
Okay,
read.
ma'am. Let me conclude it, ma'am.
Yeah, please conclude it.
Yeah, okay,
Thank you.
ma'am. In a minute, I will conclude.
Yeah, sure.
So he too has resorted to that long path. So this is what I was able to trace, and also these distinctions of marginalization are evident in all the societies, and also people are oppressed in several ways. So I thought that J.K. Rowling has mentioned it, especially marginalization. She has mentioned in her book that was meant for children and young adults, because whatever we say, whatever we fight against, protest against these social injustices, it cannot be eradicated. So only it can be eradicated only from the grassroots level. So it has to be uprooted right from the beginning. So the only the children and the young adult, it lies in the hands of them, and it is their responsibility to uproot it. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Actually, you have done so much things in the so-called science fiction and children fiction, which is only used for entertainment and adventure. But you have looked at from very different aspects, especially the marginalization, and you have a lot much to do. Actually, I can say that I think this is an extract of your PhD. That is why it goes on so long. And you have so many things to mention, and it is really good. Thank you
It
so
is
much, ma'am.
completely different from a PhD, ma'am.
Okay, really.
Thank
So
you, ma'am.
that is all the more good. Thank you so
Thank you,
much,
ma'am.
ma'am. And I don't think there's any question. There's no question in chat box also. So let's continue with our third speaker. This is Surinder Singh Jadon. Is he available?
Hello,
Yes, sir.
hello. Yeah,
Please continue, sir.
am I audible?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Hello and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Suren Singh Jadon. I am a research scholar at Department of English, GLA University, Mathura. Here I am going to present a paper. Just 1 second. I am sharing the PPT.
Okay.
So I am going to present a paper on the topic cross-cultural references and cultural conflict in the short stories Jhavala. I think my PPT is visible to all of you.
Yes.
Uh, so, first of all, the introduction of the author. Rutpawar Hawala was a German-born English Anglo-Indian Booker Prize winner, novelist, short story writer, and she won 2 times Academy Award for a screenwriter. She has written a dozen novels, 23 screenplays, and 8 collections of short stories. The cosmic treasure of Jhawala's story gives insight into the Indian and Western socio-cultural differences. She has not only presented Indian culture in objective way, but also she has reflected the issues, biases in satirical way through her characters. Due to her representation of cultural conflict in her short stories, she has sometimes called as an outsider inside, and sometimes she has been called insider outside by critics. Some of Jhawala's characters get married to Indians and live in Indian families as daughters-in-law. Like herself, she got married to an Indian, and then she lived in Delhi. So, such stories humorously present cultural conflict. There are some other stories that represent Europeans coming to India in search of mental peace, wisdom, or with their dreams, but find themselves trapped in alien environment. The in this research paper, I also explore the such conflicts which are represented in her short stories. Since time immemorial, culture of the world have attempted to preserve themselves. At the same time, they have tried to mingle with others. The traces of Indian civilization have been found all over the world. It indicates that even without modern means of communication, transport, global relations existed, and one civilization influenced the other on the social, economic, cultural, religious, and other several fronts. Since ancient times, all the cultures have some common concepts like heaven, hell, angels, demons, places of worship, sacrifices to gods, goddesses, and rituals. These affinities are not possible without close association. We know well that literature is an outcome of its surroundings, and whatever affects a society affects its literature also. The same is applicable on Indian literature also. It emerges during colonial era out of an encounter between India and Western culture. The language of the colonizers got interwoven with the culture of colonized and consequently invented a literature that stands high and plethora of literature that exists today. So most of the short stories of Jhawala are set in India, but some of them are set in West also. Here it is not possible to discuss all her short stories. She has written about 96 stories. So we will take some specimen. So let us take the first story of Jhawala. Uh, the first story of her first collection, Like Birds, Like Fishes, is entitled as The Old Lady. This story projects before us two different outlook of two generations. The old lady herself represents the senior generation, while her daughter Leela represents a younger generation. The old lady believes that marriage is a bond of 7 lives. It should be maintained at any cost. While her daughter Leela, who is a staunch supporter of Western culture, thinks that there is no wisdom in continuing a marriage which a partner is not happy. For her, the divorce is natural process. The old lady represents the Indian culture where trust in God provides perfect satisfaction, but more bliss. Leela is an epitome of West.
Sorry to interrupt, sir. Your presentation is not visible, sir.
Oh, just 1 second. Uh, so I think it is visual now.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's visible now. Thank you, sir.
So, this story projects before us two different outlooks of two generations. The old lady herself represents the senior generation, while her daughter Leela represents the younger generation. The old lady believes that marriage is a bond of 7 lives and it should be maintained at any cost. It is in our Indian culture. But while her daughter Leela, who is a staunch supporter of Western culture, thinks that there is no wisdom in continuing a marriage in which a partner is not happy. For her, divorce is a natural process. So, the old lady represents the Indian culture where trust in God provides a perfect satisfaction and utmost bliss. Leela is an epitome of Western culture where skepticism and atheism impart dissatisfaction, depression, illicit relationships, and broken families. So, this juxtaposition of two generations, two outlooks, two cultures gives us an insight into the art of Jawala. Although every collection of Jawala stories is unique in terms of cultural encounter, but her collection Stronger Climate is unique for its treatment of India, or let us say Westerners in India. The 9 stories of the collection are divided into two parts: seekers and sufferers. These two words signify the idea that Western come in India seeking peace, solace, spiritual upliftment, but the climate of India proves too strong for them that they feel disillusioned. So here is an story as an example for this collection. The story is titled as A Young Couple, where Kathy, a Western girl, marries to Narayan, an Indian boy. When they were in England, everything was fine. Kathy used to catch the hand of Narayan and kiss him in public. Narayan also enjoyed the behavior of Kathy, but everything changed when they came to India. Indian family was very happy to have a Western daughter-in-law, but Indian culture became a hurdle in their expression of love. For Kathy, now Narayan started maintaining a gap between himself and Kathy. He started spending more time with his friends, family members, and others. Kathy began to feel herself a misfit in Indian family. She proved to be a sufferer who had come here seeking love. Before marriage, India was a sweet dream for her, but afterward, it proves to be a nightmare. The same is the case of all the Western characters in this collection. The clash between two cultures is at peak in this collection in all the stories. So, in another story, In Love with a Beautiful Girl, it is about Richard, who is a British, who works in British High Commission in India. He is very much fascinated towards Indian culture. Unlike the other Westerners who make a show of their affection of Indian culture on special occasions in public meetings, so he likes Indian culture, loves Indian arts, music. Okay.
Please continue, Surinder sir.
So he likes Indian culture by heart, loves Indians, Indian arts, music. His fascination for Indian culture makes him fall in love with Indian girl Ruchira, who is very much Indian. She wears sari and has Indian feminine perfection. On the other hand, Ruchira likes Western parties culture very much. She thinks that he can take her to exciting parties and can introduce her to his English friends. So she soon becomes his friend. They love each other for their own selfish desires. But these desires are contradictory. As soon as Ruchira has her familiarity with other Westerners, she doesn't care about Richard. On the one occasion, Richard tries to get hold of her. She not only insults him but also tussles his hair, fetching car keys. She drives the car to a distance and makes Richard run behind her car like a dog. She enjoys this act and laughs at the poor condition of the Richard. So here, perhaps Jhawala wants to show that white men no longer come here to conquer, but to be conquered. So there are some other examples. I think I I should conclude in short. Uh, so Jhawala's perception of Indian culture is different from ours. We take pride in our ancient learning, glorious past, and for us, our country is still and remains of a great civilization. For us, cows and rivers are mothers and sacred symbols, but Jhawala is unable to comply with the point of view of Indian readers and Indians. She herself admits that she cannot see God in a cow and rivers are just a source of water for her. Thus, we see an entanglement of cultures in her short stories. Her fiction provides the readers a different viewpoint and exposes some negative aspects of India and Indian cultures. There exists a tussle and tension between two forces, the old and the new, and the east and the west, the tradition and the modernity. So this presentation of Jhawala is quite realistic in her short stories. So thank you everyone. If you have any question, you can ask.
Thank you, Surendra sir. Any questions, please? So the things which you have presented in Ruth Pravar Jhabwala stories, these also lead to
Yes, ma'am.
identity crisis, which is a common thing
Yeah,
in all
yeah.
systems. No? The identity
Yeah,
crisis
ma'am,
is the
I want to
biggest.
present.
Yeah,
Yeah, I want to just present to the readers or the audience that we should not take her short story as our own aspects. She read her short story at her with her Jhawala's point of view.
yeah, I agree with you totally. I'm just relating it to the diasporic world. The things which is
Yeah,
going on
sure.
very well. The people go outside, people go to foreign, and when there is a cultural conflict, they want to establish their own culture as well as they want to be accepted with the culture of their own, their foreign culture. But when
Yeah,
they accept both the culture, there is a clash, and that clash leads to their own identity crisis. And that
yeah,
is
yeah.
more prominent in second generation. As a second generation, they feel like foreigners. They treat their own parents as foreigners. They always say that, for example, we can take US. As people when move to US, the second generation, the children, they think that they belong to US, but their parents belong to India. So there is a conflict like that also. Thank you so much. You have presented a very good point. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Next, I would like to call upon Vidushi Pathak.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, ma'am, please continue.
Okay, ma'am. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm sharing my PPT. When I'm from the Heart was imparted with the Miles Franklin Literary Award and got various other awards for the same novel, especially for its style of writing. and remaking of past and history by reviving the culture of the natives is the main issue in the novel. Due to colonization, natives, or we can say that Aboriginal people, have been displaced from their past, their culture, and rituals. So, this article examines the portrayal of the history culture as remembered by the natives or Aboriginal people. And the methodology of analysis is based on the concept of memory and forgetting by Per Nora and Jan Assmann's concept of collective memory, culture identity, and Paul Riker's memory, history, and forgetting. So many Aboriginal languages are banned and lost due to government assimilation policies, and people are discouraged from speaking their own native language. So the study recovers the culture, that is customs, background and traditions of a particular society, and that recovers the history of this specific community. Whereas the Kim Scott, a short introduction of an author. He's an Australian novelist of indigenous Australian ancestry. He was born in Perth, capital of Western Australia, in 1957, and the most interesting fact of this author is that he belongs to the Noongar community of Western Australia, and he wrote all works about his own community, about his own people. So Noongar are basically the Aboriginal Australian people who live in southwest corner of the Western Australia. And the Noongar means human being, which is the name given to this specific community. As celebrating life and living in harmony with nature are fundamental values of their culture. And they usually eat fish as the part of their culture meal. So I'm discussing the novel, that is Benang in nutshell. Like, novel deals with the process of breeding out the color. So breeding out the color basically means that this was a process in which children were forcibly removed from their homes and assimilated into white Australian society. And these children were forced to breed with white Australian in order to lessen the appearance of Aboriginal in them. And it was believed that through this continuous process, that eventually there would be no trace of Aboriginal in the future generations. So this is the concept that novel deals with, that breeding out the color. And also it depicts how tough it is to form a working history of a population who had been historically displaced from their past. As a protagonist, Harley, a young man who has gone through this process of breeding out the color, and eventually he pieces together his family history by mediating upon ancestral archival documents, photographs, and also there are various issues had been discussed, like loss of significance of oral histories and culture displacement. Coming to the concept of the collective memory. So collective memories refers to the shared pool of memories, knowledge, information, or social group that particularly related with group's identity. So these groups can include communities, nations, and generations. And also it shares a memory of nation past leaders, or the images, picture, narratives, values, or ideas of a social group. It presents the past events related to the beliefs or values of a specific group or community. And another concept of memory that is called culture memory, a concept that has been given by the Jan Assmann in the essay Collective Memory and Culture Identity. It studies how knowledge and identity of specific group are preserved. So culture memory is formed by symbolic heritage embedded in text, monuments, celebrations, objects, sacred scriptures, and other media that serves as mnemonic triggers to initiate meanings associated with what has happened. Also, it brings back the time of the mythical origins, crystallizes collective experience of the past, and can last for millennia. Therefore, it presupposes a knowledge restricted to initiates. Also, Jan pointed out the connections between culture memory and identity. So accordingly, culture memory is the faculty that allows us to build a narrative picture of past. And through this process, it develops an image and an identity for ourselves. So therefore, culture memory preserves the symbolic institutionalized heritage to which individuals resort to build their own identities and to affirm themselves on a part of a group. Also, Jain gave distinction between two types of memory, which are communicative memory and culture memory. He says that communicative memories relate to everyday memories which get conveyed through orality, while culture memory speech is focused, which refers to the objectified and institutionalized memories that can be transferred through generations. Also, discusses the connection between identity and culture memory. Culture memory preserves the knowledge. Culture memory works by reconstructing that it always relates its knowledge to an actual and contemporary situation. It preserves the store of knowledge from which a group derives an awareness of its unity and peculiarity. Also, it has its fixed points. It does not change with the passage of time. And these fixed points are fateful events of past whose memory is maintained through culture formation, like through texts, through documents, or through photographs. Also, the culture memory exists in two modes, mode of potentiality and mode of actuality. Mode of potentiality, it can be obtained through archives, accumulated text, images. While, on the other hand, if we say about the mode of actuality, it is about the contemporary context, put the objectivized meaning into its own perspective and giving its own relevance. Secondly, concept of culture memory comprises that the body of reasonable text, images, and rituals which are specific to each society in each epoch, whose cultivation serves to stabilize and convey that society's self-image. Also, in the novel, the main protagonist, Harley, tries to discover his past and considered himself as one who can revive the past of his family and his community. And it is always important to revive one's culture, one's traditions. So he accepts that the process had done very simple for him, but eventually he made the society, his own community proud that he revived his own culture for his own people. Also, he wanted to convey that what matters is what his heart says. And he was not a white man, but a Noongar is what heart says. So eventually, he recovered his Noongar culture, his traditions. So, summing up with my conclusion, in this paper, I concluded that the protagonist of the novel, through the protagonist of this novel, Scott tries to revive the past of his community, of his own people. And through his writing, he reunites with the history, with his past and his own culture. Also, he gives the idea that through writing, one can represent their past and their history. And by doing this, he shows the resistance of natives towards Europeans. And in the process of rewriting, Scott uncovers the predicaments of the Noongar people and tries to improve the historical culture and social crises. So it is very important for ones to revive, to recover their tradition, their culture, and their history. This is all for my presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Vidushi. Thank you so much
Thank you,
for
ma'am.
such a different paper on culture memory. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
And there's no question in chat box, and I don't think anyone has any question.
Okay,
If
thank you,
anybody
ma'am.
wants to ask anything,
Yes.
please. So no questions at all. Thank you so much,
Thank you
Vidushi.
so much, ma'am.
And thank you so much, Vishal sir and Dr. Rajan Silvit, for giving me an opportunity to be here. And I'll just conclude that literature and culture both are so related. Literature is actually a mirror of society, and our society reflects our culture. So these cannot be kept aside. They have to be intermingled, they have to be mixed up. Thank you so much for keeping up with such a topic and with different points of view. Thank you so much for inviting me, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. My sincere thanks to you, ma'am, and each and every speaker uh, for who have enriched this session with their valuable thoughts and words. Thank you so much, ma'am. It's been a great pleasure to have you here, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay.